The wind howled like a beast in pain. Trees bent under the weight of rain, and thunder rolled across the dark sky. Lightning flashed, turning the forest into a world of silver for a single heartbeat. Then darkness swallowed it again. Daniel Cross pulled his old jacket tighter around his shoulders and cursed the storm under his breath. Nights like this reminded him of the war-cold, wet, and full of sounds that didn't belong. He was on his way back to his small wooden cabin after checking the perimeter. Life had been quiet for years, and that was how he liked it. No soldiers. Number orders, no blood. Just silence. But tonight, there was no silence. It started as a faint sound, almost lost in the rain. A cry, high-pitched, sharp, not human. Daniel stopped dead in his tracks. His boots sank into the mud as he turned his head, listening. For a moment, all he heard was the storm. And there it was again, a cry, weak, trembling, and close. His heart began to race. Every instinct from his years in combat screamed danger. Out here, far from cities, strange things could crawl in the dark. Probably an animal, he muttered to himself, gripping the old rifle slung over his shoulder. But something about that cry didn't sound like an animal. It sounded scared. Another flash of lightning split the sky. For an instant, Daniel saw a shape between the trees, small, moving slowly. Then darkness came crashing back. Damn it, he whispered and stepped off the path. The ground was slippery, the rain cutting his face like cold knives. He pushed through the bushes, following the sound. The crying grew louder, desperate now, as if calling for anyone. Finally, he saw it. At first, his mind refused to believe what his eyes saw. Curled against the roots of an old tree was a small creature, no bigger than a toddler. Its skin glowed faintly, almost like moonlight, pale blue with veins of silver running beneath. Two large, luminous eyes stared at him, filled with fear. It had delicate arms, sharp little claws, and strange markings across its forehead that pulsed faintly with light. The creature shivered violently. It was drenched, its thin body trembling, breath coming in weak gasps. Daniel froze. He knew what it was. He had seen things like this during the war aliens. But never a child. Holy hell, he whispered. His grip tightened on the rifle. Every instinct told him to walk away, to let nature take its course. This wasn't his problem. But then the creature made a sound, a whimper, so soft, so broken. That something inside Daniel cracked. It wasn't a monster. It wasn't a soldier. It was just a child. And it was dying. Daniel dropped his rifle and knelt beside it. Easy, easy now, he said softly, even though he knew it didn't understand. His words, the alien flinched when he reached out, letting out a hiss like steam. But it was too weak to run. Gently, Daniel slid his arms under its tiny body. It was cold, too cold. He could feel bones under its skin. As he lifted it, the creature made a faint sound. Not a cry this time. Something else. Almost like a word. Lyra. Daniel blinked. Lyra? Is that your name? The alien's glowing eyes fluttered shut. It didn't answer. He held it close against his chest, shielding it from the rain with his jacket. Then he turned and ran. The storm raged, branches clawing at his clothes as he fought his way back to the cabin. His breath burned in his lungs, but he didn't stop. He COULDN, single quotes T, when he burst through the cabin door. The warmth of the fireplace washed over him like a blessing. He kicked the door shut, laid the small creature on a blanket near the fire, and grabbed a towel. The alien whimpered as he dried it off, its skin cold and slick like wet glass. Daniel checked for wounds. There were bruises, small cuts, and something else, a burn mark on its leg, like it had been hit by a weapon. He wrapped it in a thick blanket and stared down at its strange, delicate face. Those glowing veins, those eyes, what the hell are you? He whispered. The alien stirred, opening its eyes just a little. For the first time, Daniel saw something there. Fear, pain, but also trust, a tiny flicker of it. Buried deep. Daniel sighed and ran a hand over his face. He knew what this meant. If someone had shot this little thing, someone would come looking. And when they did, they'd kill anyone who had it. He looked at the alien again. Its breathing was shallow, but steady now. The glow in its markings pulsed. Softly, almost like a heartbeat. "All right, Lyra," Daniel muttered. "You're safe now. I don't know what you are, or who you belong to, but you're not dying out here in the mud." Outside, the storm raged louder. Thunder shook the walls. And far away, beyond the trees, a strange, low growl rolled through the night. Daniel froze, listening. Something out there had heard the storm. Something out there had heard the cry, and it was coming. Daniel froze by the window, his old rifle gripped tight. Rain dripped from the edge of the roof, and the storm still roared outside. But this sound wasn't the storm. It was deeper, alive, his. Eyes darted to the small shape by the fire. Lyra lay wrapped in a blanket, her glowing skin dim in the warm light. She looked peaceful now, like any sleeping child. But Daniel knew peace was a lie. Something was hunting her. He moved quickly, grabbing his binoculars from the shelf. The glass fogged as he held it up, scanning the tree line through the sheets of rain. For a moment, there was nothing but shadows. Then, a flash of lightning lit up the forest. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. There among the trees was a figure, tall, armored. Its body shimmered like liquid metal, bending light around it. Two more appeared behind the first, there. Long weapons glowing faintly blue. "Damn it," Daniel whispered. His gut twisted. These weren't animals. They were soldiers, and they weren't here for him. He turned to Lyra. She stirred slightly, her strange markings glowing a little brighter. As if sensing danger, Daniel knelt beside her, whispering softly, "Stay quiet, little one, please." But she didn't understand. She just blinked at him with those luminous eyes that were too smart for a child. A loud thud made the cabin shake. Daniel spun toward the door. Something had stepped onto the porch. Heavy boots. The wood creaked under its weight. "Move," Daniel hissed to himself. He grabbed Lyra and tucked her inside his coat, wrapping the blanket tight around her tiny body. Her faint glow pulsed against his chest like a heartbeat. Another thud. Then a hiss, metal scraping on metal as something unlocked the outer latch. They were breaking in. Daniel dashed to the back of the cabin and pulled open the cellar door. It groaned loudly, making him wince. He climbed down the wooden steps, the smell of damp earth filling his nose. The cellar was cold and dark, lit only by a weak bulb. He set Lyra down gently on an old crate. "Stay here," he whispered. She stared at him, fear and confusion in her glowing eyes. Her little claws gripped his sleeve as if begging him not to leave. He forced a smile. "I'll be back. Promise." The sound of the door above splintering made his blood run cold. Daniel climbed back up, closing the cellar door softly behind him. He slid the heavy workbench over it, just as the front door exploded inward. The blast threw him backward. Heat washed over him, and shards of wood rained down. He coughed and scrambled to his feet, rifle raised. Through the smoke, he saw them. 3 figures, tall and sleek, stepping into the cabin like shadows given form. Their armor shimmered with strange light, water dripping from the smooth plates. Their faces were hidden behind sharp helmets with glowing red slits for eyes. One of them raised a scanning device. It pulsed with blue light, sweeping the room, searching for her. Daniel ducked. behind the old couch, his heart hammering in his chest. He knew he couldn't fight 3 soldiers with 1 rifle, but he could buy time. He grabbed a glass bottle from the shelf and hurled it across the room. It smashed near the door. The soldiers spun instantly, weapons raised, and fired. Blue plasma burned through the wall with a hiss like a cutting torch. Daniel used the distraction to move. Silent, slow. His boots made no sound on the wooden floor. He slipped behind the old brick fireplace and waited, breath held. A scanning light passed close to his face, glowing blue against the bricks. Daniel didn't move. Not an inch. Then the device made a sharp sound. Beep, beep. The soldiers turned toward the cellar door. No, Daniel whispered. His blood turned to ice. He moved without thinking. His rifle barked once, the shot echoing like thunder inside the cabin. The nearest soldier's head snapped back in a burst of sparks. The others roared a sound so alien it shook his bones and opened fire. Daniel dove behind the table as blue energy blasts scorched the air where he'd been standing. The wooden walls caught fire, smoke filling the room. He crawled toward the window, heart pounding. He didn't want to fight. He just needed to get Lyra out. But the cellar, damn it. The cellar was trapped now. Another blast tore through the table, missing him by inches. Heat seared his arm as he smashed through the window, glass slicing his skin. Rain hit his face like cold knives as he rolled into the mud outside. He ran to the back of the cabin, desperate, praying the soldiers would chase him instead of finding her. Plasma blasts hissed through the rain behind him, trees exploding into flames. Daniel dived into the darkness of the forest, breath ragged, blood dripping from his arm. Behind him, the cabin burned. Blue flames lit up the night, and through the roar of the storm, Daniel heard something that froze his soul, the sound of the cellar door being ripped open. Asterisk. Daniel skidded to a halt behind a fallen tree, mud splashing under his boots. His chest burned with every breath. Rain poured down like a curtain of needles, but his mind wasn't on the pain. It was on the cabin, the place he'd left her. Lyra. His heart slammed against his ribs. He had promised her safety. He had promised to come back. And now the firelight of his burning cabin glowed behind the trees, blue and orange mixing like hell's own colors. A sharp, metallic howl ripped through the storm. Daniel froze, his breath catching. That sound wasn't human. It wasn't natural. It was a predator's call, a hunter marking its prey, and it was close. Suddenly, something hit the ground near him with a wet thud. He looked down and saw a small glowing blanket, torn. The world went silent in his head. Just silent. No, no, no. Daniel dropped to his knees, his hands gripping the wet fabric. It was hers. It smelled faintly of smoke, and something sweet he couldn't name. He felt his stomach twist, bile rising in his throat. They had her. Another howl closer this time snapped him out of it. Daniel clenched his jaw and looked up. Through the rain and smoke, he saw movement. 3 tall figures moving through the cabin. Trees with unnatural grace, their armor glowing faintly like ghosts. One of them carried something small under its arm. His blood turned to fire. Daniel moved before he could think. He slung the rifle over his shoulder and ran low through the shadows, his boots sinking into the mud with every step. His pulse roared in his ears, but he stayed silent. Years of war had taught him how to hunt killers. He wasn't a soldier anymore. But tonight, he would be. The soldiers stopped near a clearing where a sleek dropship waited, its engines humming. Low, blue lights cut through the rain, reflecting off the wet leaves. The rear hatch opened with a hiss of steam. Daniel saw her then. Lyra. She was limp, her small body glowing faintly in the soldier's arms. Her head lolled to one side, markings on her skin flickering like dying embers. God damn it, Daniel whispered. His hands gripped the rifle so tight his knuckles turned white. He wanted to shoot. He wanted to kill them all. But one wrong shot, and she was dead. He scanned the area quickly. 3 soldiers, 1 dropship. He had a rifle, 2 mags, and an old combat knife. No time, no plan. Just instinct. Lightning split. The sky and Daniel moved. He rolled from the shadows and fired 3 quick shots. The first soldier's head exploded in a shower of sparks, its body crashing into the mud. The second spun, raising its weapon, but Daniel was faster. The bullet punched through its chest plate, sending it stumbling back. The third soldier dropped. Lyra and opened fire. Blue plasma ripped through the air, searing a tree inches from Daniel's head. He dove behind a boulder as the ground erupted with fire. Come on, come on. He growled, reloading with shaking hands. Lyra stirred weakly. In the mud, her glowing eyes half open. She saw him, and for a moment, just a moment, she smiled. That single look broke something inside Daniel. He launched himself from cover, screaming, and fired until the rifle clicked empty. Bullets sparked off armor, one hitting the soldiers. Leg, it stumbled. Daniel closed the distance, swinging the rifle like a club. The stock smashed into the helmet with a sickening crack. The alien roared, backhanding him so hard he flew into a tree. Pain exploded in his chest. He tasted blood. The soldier raised its weapon to finish him and froze. A sound filled the clearing. Low at first, then rising a hum that vibrated in Daniel's bones. He looked up. Lyra was standing. Her tiny body shook, her markings blazing like fire. Her eyes glowed brighter than the storm. She raised one trembling hand, and the air rippled. Like water, the soldier turned to shoot, but it was too late. The ground split with a deafening crack. Roots tore free, wrapping around the alien like living snakes. The soldier screamed as the earth swallowed it whole. Then silence, just the storm and the smell of burning ozone. Lyra collapsed into the mud. Lyra! Daniel crawled to her, ignoring, the pain tearing through his ribs. He scooped her up, feeling heat radiate from her skin. She was burning up, her tiny chest heaving. It's okay, he whispered, voice breaking. I've got you. I've got you. The dropship's engines roared louder. Warning lights flashed on its hull. Daniel's stomach dropped. More were coming. He clutched Lyra tight and ran into the blackness of the forest, the hum of alien engines chasing him through the rain behind him. A voice crackled through the dropship's speakers. Deep, cold. The air is alive. Find them. Kill the human. Daniel didn't look back. He just ran. Daniel staggered inside, clutching Lyra close to his chest. His ribs screamed with every breath, and his vision blurred, but he didn't stop until he reached the farthest corner. There, he sank to his knees, pressing his back against the cold stone. Lyra was burning up. Her skin glowed brighter than before, light pulsing like a heartbeat. Tiny sparks of energy flickered around her fingers. It made the air taste sharp, like ozone. Stay with me, Daniel whispered, brushing the wet hair, if it could be called. Hair from her forehead. It felt soft and smooth, like silk, but cold underneath. You hear me, Lyra? Stay with me. Her eyes fluttered open for a moment. They were pools of silver light, glowing in the darkness. She tried to speak, but the words came out broken and weak. Da-da. Kneel. His throat tightened. Yeah, I'm here. She reached for his hand. Her tiny claws scratched his skin, but he didn't care. He held her gently, the way a father holds a child. Outside, the storm still raged. But above the thunder, Daniel heard something worse, the distant roar of engines. The aliens were still hunting. He needed answers. He needed to know why they wanted her dead. Daniel, set Lyra down on a blanket he'd taken from his pack, and pulled out his old combat scanner. It was a battered piece of tech from the war, but it still worked. He aimed it at her glowing skin. The screen flickered, and strange symbols filled the display. Not human language, not any code he'd seen before. But the patterns, they weren't random. They looked like an emblem dot. Then the scanner beeped, loud and sharp. A warning signal. The screen turned red and displayed one word in big letters: Royal. Daniel stared at it, his blood running cold. What the hell? He whispered dot before he could think. The scanner connected to an old emergency database and projected a hologram in the air. The image flickered, distorted by static, but Daniel's heart almost stopped when it cleared. A tall alien figure appeared. Draped in glowing robes, its voice echoing like thunder. To all hunters, the heir must not survive. Erase the bloodline. Kill anyone who shelters her. The message repeated over and over, in harsh alien tones. Daniel felt the weight of the words like a punch to the gut. The heir. Lyra wasn't just some random alien child. She was a princess. No, a future ruler. And someone wanted her dead. Badly enough to send assassins across half the galaxy. He turned to look at her, still glowing faintly, breathing in shallow gasps. God damn it. Lyra, Daniel muttered. What have I gotten us into? The message kept playing, the alien voice cold and merciless. Erase the bloodline. Daniel's jaw clenched. He'd seen enough bloodlines erased during the war. He'd seen children slaughtered because they were born to the wrong family. And he had sworn he would never let it happen again, ... never to her. He shut off the scanner and pulled out his rifle, checking the mag. Only half a clip left. Not nearly enough, his mind raced. He couldn't keep running forever. Sooner or later, they'd catch him. He needed a plan. A way off this planet. A way to get her to someone who could protect her. But who? Humanity had no allies out here. The war had seen to that ... think. Damn it, he whispered, raking a hand through his wet hair. Lyra stirred again, murmuring something in her language. Her voice was like a soft melody, broken by pain. Then, slowly, she formed a human word, clumsy, but clear. Safe. Daniel froze, staring at her. Her little hand reached for his. You. Safe, she whispered. His throat tightened. The way she said it like a promise, like she believed it with everything she had shook him to his core. Daniel squeezed her hand gently. I'll keep you safe, he whispered back. Even if it kills me. The roar of engines grew louder outside. Lights flashed at the cave's entrance search beams, cutting through the rain. Daniel's pulse spiked. They were here. He slung Lyra onto his back, using the blanket as a sling, securing her against him. Then he grabbed his rifle and checked. The knife at his belt. The ground trembled as something heavy landed outside. Shadows moved across the cave walls, big, armored shapes. Daniel took one last look at the glowing child on his back. She was still breathing, her markings pulsing softly like stars. He drew a long breath and whispered, You're not dying tonight, princess. Then the cave exploded with light as the first alien stepped inside. Asterisk. Daniel dove behind a boulder as the blast tore through stone, spraying shards across the floor. The shockwave knocked the breath out of him. He hit the ground hard, the weight of Lyra against his back like a promise and a burden he refused. To break, shadows moved in the smoke. Tall, armored figures with glowing visors stepped inside, weapons humming with deadly light. Rain poured behind them, turning the world outside into a silver curtain. Stay calm, Daniel whispered to himself, his hands tightening on the rifle. His pulse pounded in his ears. He had only a handful of bullets left. The first alien soldier entered fully, scanning the cave with a device that pulsed blue. The light swept over the boulder, Daniel held his breath. The beam stopped. The device gave a sharp beep. They knew he was there. A voice like grinding metal echoed in the cave. Target. Confirmed. Eliminate. Daniel moved before the word finished. He swung out from cover and fired 3 times, each shot cracking like thunder. Sparks burst from the soldier's chest plate. It staggered but didn't fall. The second soldier returned fire. A searing beam of plasma ripped past Daniel's head, close enough to scorch his hair. The heat stung his face as he rolled behind another rock, clutching Lyra tighter against him. Her small body burned with fever, her markings glowing so bright they lit the cave like lanterns. Daniel could feel her trembling. Every second she grew weaker. "Hang on, kid," he muttered, teeth clenched. "Not now. Not when I've come this far." He ripped a grenade from his belt, the last one, and pulled the pin. With a quick prayer, he lobbed it toward the cave mouth. The explosion shook the mountain. Fire and rock swallowed the soldiers. In a blinding blast, Daniel shielded Lyra with his body as chunks of stone crashed down. The roar faded into ringing silence, broken only by the storm outside. When the smoke cleared, the entrance was a pile of rubble. The soldiers were gone, or buried. For now Daniel sucked in a shaky breath, coughing through the dust. His ribs felt like they were on fire, and his left arm throbbed with pain. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. He looked down at Lyra. Her eyes were half open, glowing faintly. Her small hand reached for his neck. "Safe," she whispered. Daniel swallowed. Hard, for now. But he knew the truth. That blast would draw more of them. They'd never stop. And now, with the cave sealed, he was trapped. His mind raced. He needed a way out. A way to call for help. His gaze fell on the corner of the cave, a dusty metal box, half buried under rubble. His heart jumped. A distress beacon. Old. Rusted. But maybe, just maybe, still working. He yanked it out and ripped off the corroded panel, his fingers moving fast despite the tremor in his hands. Sparks spat as he forced old wires into place. Praying the storm outside didn't kill the signal. Finally, the small screen flickered to life. Static filled the air, then a faint tone. The transmitter worked. Daniel leaned close to the mic, his voice low and urgent. "This is Daniel Cross, former Terran Army. Coordinates attached. I have a priority life form under threat. If any human can hear this, we need extraction. Now." He paused, his jaw tight, then added softer, "Don't let them take her." He slammed the SEND button. The beacon emitted a sharp pulse, then went silent. No reply. Daniel stared at it for a long second, the weight of hopelessness pressing on his chest. Maybe no one was out there. Maybe humanity had forgotten this edge of space. But then Lyra's tiny voice broke through his thoughts. "Daniel." He looked down. Her glowing eyes stared at him, trust shining even through pain. She whispered one word, "Promise." Daniel's throat burned. He brushed a hand over her silver hair and nodded. "I promise." Outside, the storm began to change. The rain turned white in the glow of descending engines. The cave trembled as an alien dropship landed above, its lights cutting through the cracks in the rock like blades. Daniel grabbed his rifle and slung Lyra across his chest, tying the blanket tight. He stood tall, pain screaming through his body, and stared at the crumbling entrance. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. He took one last breath and whispered, "You picked the wrong human to fight." The wall exploded inward in a shower of fire and smoke. Silhouettes loomed in the flames bigger than before, moving like predators. Their leader stepped forward, its armor marked with crimson symbols. The voice that came from its mask was a cold promise of death. "Give us the air, or burn. Daniel raised his rifle. His jaw set like stone. Daniel hit the ground hard, shielding Lyra with his body as shards of rock rained down. Heat blasted across his back, and smoke clawed at his lungs. When he lifted his head, the cave entrance was gone, replaced by a burning hole and towering shadows. 3 soldiers stepped through the flames like demons, their armor glowing crimson in the firelight. And behind them came a 4th, bigger, heavier, marked with blood-red symbols. The leader. Its voice rolled like thunder, cold and merciless. The air dies here. The human dies slower. Daniel's grip on his rifle tightened until his knuckles turned white. His body ached, his ribs screamed with pain, but he forced himself to stand. Lyra was tied against his chest, her tiny body limp, her markings flickering weakly like fading stars. Not now. She couldn't die now. Come and try. Daniel growled. His voice was hoarse, but steady. The first alien lunged. Daniel rolled to the side and fired 2 rounds. Sparks burst from its armor, but it didn't fall. The second soldier swung its weapon like a blade, a beam of blue light slicing the air. Daniel ducked, feeling the heat singe his hair. He fired. Again, the shots cracking like thunder inside the cave. 1 bullet found a weak joint. The alien staggered back, roaring in rage. But there were too many. Too fast. A plasma blast tore past Daniel's shoulder, scorching the rock wall. He ducked behind a pillar, panting, reloading with shaking hands. His ammo was almost gone. Just 5 rounds left, and the leader hadn't even moved yet. Daniel peeked around the pillar and froze. The leader raised its arm. A beam of red energy shot forward, cutting the rock like paper. A blast hit the pillar Daniel hid behind. The stone shattered, throwing him across the floor. Pain exploded in his chest. He couldn't breathe. His vision blurred. But through the haze, he saw Lyra tumble from his arms, landing in the mud. Lyra! His voice cracked as he crawled toward her, blood dripping from his lips. She lay still, her small body glowing faintly. The markings on her skin dimmed, pulsing. Slower and slower. Like a dying heartbeat. Something inside Daniel snapped. He pushed himself up, every muscle screaming in protest. He grabbed the rifle, even though it felt like lead in his hands, and aimed at the leader. Stay away from her, he snarled. The leader tilted its head, almost amused. Brave words for a dying man. It raised its weapon to finish him. And then everything changed. The cave filled with light. Blinding, white gold light that burned brighter than the flames. Daniel turned, and his breath caught in his throat. Lyra was floating. Her small body rose from the ground, wrapped in ribbons of light. Her eyes blazed like twin suns. The markings on her skin pulsed with raw power, casting shadows across the air vibrated with a deep hum that made the soldiers freeze. Dust and stones lifted from the ground, spinning around her like a storm. Lyra opened her eyes fully and spoke. Her voice was no longer soft. It was thunder and wind, echoing through the cave in a language older than stars. Enough. The blast hit like a supernova. Light erupted from her body, sweeping through the cave in a tidal wave of energy. The soldiers screamed, their armor tearing apart like paper. Their weapons melted into slag as they were thrown into the walls. Leader roared in rage, raising its shield. But even that shattered under the force of Lyra's power. The alien crashed into the rock, sparks bursting from its armor, its voice breaking into static as it fell silent, and then silence. The fire was gone. The cave walls glowed faintly, molten streaks running down like tears. Dust floated in them. Air like snow. Daniel lay on the ground, staring in stunned silence as Lyra descended slowly. Her glow dimmed to a soft silver, her body small and fragile again. She stumbled and Daniel crawled forward to catch her. "I've got you," he whispered, voice trembling as he pulled her into his arms. "I've got you, kid." She rested her head against his chest, her tiny voice barely a whisper. "Safe, Daniel." He hugged her tight, tears mixing with blood on his face. He didn't care about the pain. He didn't care about the bodies around them. He only cared that she was alive. But then he heard it, a sound that froze his blood. Engines. Dozens. Of them. Daniel staggered to his feet and stumbled toward the cave mouth. When he looked outside, his heart nearly stopped. The sky was burning. Alien warships filled the clouds, their lights cutting through the storm like blades. Dropships swarmed the mountains like a plague, and then he saw something else. A larger ship, descending slowly, draped in banners of silver and gold. Its shape was regal, its presence commanding. Daniel felt his stomach twist. This wasn't a rescue. This was the throne coming for its heir, and they had found her. Asterisk. Daniel stood at the cave entrance, clutching Lyra against his chest. The storm had broken, but the night was worse than any storm. The sky above the mountains shimmered with alien warships' dark silhouettes, crowned with blue and gold lights. Hundreds of them. Engines roared like thunder as dropships descended through sheets of rain. The air shook. The earth trembled. And at the center of it all, cutting through the clouds like a blade, came a ship unlike the rest, vast, radiant, draped in silver banners that glowed like moons. Daniel knew what it meant. They weren't here to destroy. They were here to claim the heir. He looked down at Lyra. She was awake now, her silver eyes glowing softly, her small hands gripping his jacket like a lifeline. She looked up at him with a strange calmness, as if she understood everything. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice fragile but steady. "Home." His throat tightened. He shook his head slowly, rain dripping from his hair. "This is your home now, kid. With me." But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true. This wasn't a choice he could make. Not anymore. The ground shook as a massive platform extended from the great ship and slammed into the mountainside like a throne landing on Earth. A shimmering ramp unfolded, glowing symbols dancing across its surface. Figures appeared. Dozens. Of them, armored in white and silver, carrying banners that flowed like streams of light. At their center walked someone taller than all, cloaked in robes of starlight, their crown casting halos of energy into the rain. The Empress. Daniel's heart pounded as the figure approached, her steps slow and regal. Around her, soldiers lowered, their weapons bowing low. Even the storm seemed to quiet in her presence. She stopped a few feet from him, her hood falling back to reveal a face both alien and beautiful, sharp as carved crystal, glowing with an inner light. Her eyes silver fire. Her voice, when it came, was a melody that shook the air. "You have what is mine." Daniel's jaw clenched. His hands tightened around Lyra. "She's not a thing," he said, his voice rough but unshaken. "She's a child." The Empress tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle. "And yet, you protected her, when all others would have run." Daniel stared back. "She needed me." For a long moment, silence stretched between them, heavy as stone. Then, the Empress lifted her hand slowly, palm out. Lyra stirred in Daniel's arms. "Home," Lyra whispered again, her eyes glowing brighter. She reached toward the Empress, then stopped. Her gaze shifted back to Daniel, full of something deeper than words. Daniel's chest ached. He could feel it, the weight of the years he'd spent alone, the promise he'd made, the bond they'd built in the dark. And now he had to let her go. His voice cracked when he spoke. "Stay safe, kid." Lyra touched his face with her small hand, her claws gentle against his skin. Then she whispered, in broken human words, The same thing she'd said the night. He saved her, Daniel safe. And for the first time, he understood. She wasn't asking if she was safe. She was telling him, promising him that he would be. She slid from his arms into the Empress's waiting hands. Light bloomed around them, silver ribbons curling like smoke. The soldiers knelt as the Empress turned, holding Lyra high, her voice ringing like a star's song. "Behold, your Empress has returned." The mountains shook with the roar of 1,000 alien voices chanting in unison. Banners blazed. The sky lit with fire. Daniel watched, numb, as the ramp folded and the great ship began to rise. Lyra looked back one. Last time, her glowing eyes locking on his. She lifted her hand in a small, human gesture he had taught her, 2 fingers raised in a promise. Then the ship vanished into the storm, leaving only silence and rain. Daniel stood there for a long time, his heart heavy and full, all at once. He thought it was the end. Until the beacon at his feet crackled to life. "Daniel Cross," a voice said through the static. "Transmission received. We're coming for you. Hold on." Daniel looked up at the stars where Lyra had gone, a faint smile breaking through the pain. "Guess I'll be here," he murmured, "if she ever wants to visit." The wind swept across the mountains, carrying with it a whisper soft and familiar, like a voice from the sky. "Promise." "And Daniel," whispered back always. *The end.